You've probably heard a lot about Bitcoin lately, whether it's on the news, online, or because your weird mate Steve keeps banging on about how much his is worth. There's a lot of noise and information, and it can be hard to know where to begin. Coin Corner cuts through all the confusion with an easy-to-use site and a friendly customer support team on hand to help. Coin Corner is a quick and easy way to buy Bitcoin in the UK. Visit coincorner.com and enter code FILMBTC at sign up for some free sats or small amounts of Bitcoin to get you started. Coin Corner,
the Podfix Network.
Hello and welcome to episode 223 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk...
Do we talk? About films and all things relating to films.
From indie film to... Wait.
You think I'd remember, but you do it every time, so I don't know the lyrics.
So you just say filmmaking. Yeah. From indie films to studio... where we talk...
About everything from indie films to studio films.
No, where we talk filmmaking. Ready?
Filmmaking.
Where we talk...
filmmaking.
From indie film to studio films and...
everything in between.
How to get them made, how to make them, how to try not to...
fuck it up.
In our very, very humble opinion, I am delighted to welcome you to this episode of the Filmmakers Podcast because we have on the fantastic director, Aneil Karia, whose debut feature film, Surge, starring Ben Whishaw, is out in cinemas and online now. Go support, go watch. I am Giles Alderson, a writer, director, and a producer, and I'm delighted that my co-host, and I'm overjoyed today that my co-host is the fantastic producer of many feature films and director of 3 feature films, including Winter Ridge. It is the fantastic Dom Lenoir.
Hello, Giles. What
Hello,
a pleasure to be here on this sunny day.
It's a delight to have you. So on this week's episode, Dom, what did you learn? What did you take away from Aneil's fantastic chat?
I learned about his amazing journey through journalism into the NTFS and into film, learning about what you do and you don't do, starting music videos and commercials.
We also discussed in detail about how you can start making shorts and being a short filmmaker and turning that short into a feature film, which happened to be turning that short into a feature film. Turning that short into the feature film, Surge.
It was like a surge of words there, wasn't there? We're also looking at how to raise the money, how to practically turn a short into a feature, and tips for upcoming filmmakers.
And he says, and the important thing here is why you need to be true to yourself. Oh, Dom, I can't wait for people to see this in the cinemas. And I can't wait to get back to cinemas. Are you excited that cinemas are open again now?
I'm delighted. I'm going to be going anytime this week. Probably to look at Quiet Place 2.
Anytime this week. Just waiting for a date. Waiting for someone to ask you to go along with you.
No, actually, I tell you what. I'm going to be going to see Abid Khan's blockbuster international indie exchange student extravaganza, 3 stars from Total Film, available only this week at Odeon cinemas near you, so you should go and watch Abid Khan's Granada Nights very soon.
Granada Nights, huge plug for you. Congratulations, Abid. It's around for a week. Go support his film now. Abid was on our Make Your Film events, which we'll be doing again soon, right, Dom? Now things are opening up. Maybe September?
Yeah, I think September we're going to have a climactic return to the
climactic
best London film event in town.
And that is the Make Your Film event. But Dom, sadly, I won't be able to go to the cinema at the moment.
No, because Giles, who definitely didn't tell me to say this,
not set up at all.
Giles is in the enviable position of shooting his next feature in, I think it's 2 weeks. So he's busy in the chaos of casting, location finalising, pre-production, and general sort of getting ready to shoot madness.
It is madness. Yeah, it's called Into Enemy Territory. It's a World War II feature. And at the moment, I'm diving deep into casting because we haven't fully cast all the roles yet, which is cool. It's fine. We're getting some amazing auditions through. And the pre-production. So I went for a recce yesterday. We're doing a big VFX today, even though it's Bank Holiday Monday. You know, big meeting about that. There's so much to do. You know what it's like in prepping a feature film, scheduling it. All those locations you just need to find. Those little moments. You're like, oh, it's written in the script as this place. And you're kind of like, right, well, we need to find it.
Millions of micro decisions bouncing off your phones and emails, and
there is, and I think it is something that when you dive into a feature, it's the thing that you do get so overwhelmed with when you're making your first one, because you're like, oh my god, you have to suddenly make all these decisions, and you're like, well, I don't know, I could be wrong, and you're not fully in your director mode yet. You probably are. Yeah, I am, but you're not in that director mode yet. You're not in your certain mode. You're still searching and finding things. So it's really difficult when people go, well, you could shoot at this lake or this one.
Yeah, but I think the more decisions you make, I mean, I always believe in taking action is the easiest way to get past your fears.
Yes.
And the more answers that you fire back, the better your understanding, the better your HOD's understanding, the better your cast understanding. So making those decisions, right or wrong, will inform the decisions of the film and build a bigger picture, a clearer picture.
I agree. And what's really interesting there is you can always change your mind later. And it's not ideal, but
just fix it in post.
Fix it. Yeah, I'm just going to reshoot this.
On that.
Yeah, put it on a t-shirt, mate. So yeah, I am very much looking forward to shooting that. Can't wait. We're doing that with Picture Perfect, which is Lucinda Rhodes-Thakrar, who's generally one of the co-hosts on this podcast. So which is amazing. I'm really looking forward to it again, working with her. So that's going to be brilliant. We have our Patreon, boys and girls. There's some amazing people who've already signed up to that. Where you do get ad-free podcasts, you do get some really cool little perks. So if you fancy supporting this podcast any more than just listening in, which we love, then do go to our Patreon. Link is in the show notes, but it's the Filmmakers Podcast /patreon.com, and you can see all the benefits there. Thank you very much, Kevin Pybus, Marley J. Monroe, Melanie Gourlay, Richard Miller, Louise Salter, James Skinner, Dave Capiro, and Chris Hughes. Thank you all for our patrons. Do come join us. Dom's already shouted out Abid Khan's film, which is in cinemas at the moment, Granada Nights. Do go support that. But also, we have a shout out to Jane Gull. She was the director of My Feral Heart, which is the UK's most successful cinema on demand film of all time. They are now doing their new music drama feature film called Love Without Walls. Jane and Karen Newman now doing a crowdfunder, and it is on Greenlit, the fantastic platform Greenlit. They have raised nearly $4,000 so far. They have a lot more to raise, so do go support them. It sounds fantastic. Link to that is in the show notes. If you can spare anything, even if it's just retweeting the latest tweet, please do it. Love Without Walls on Greenlit. Link is in the show notes. Support indie filmmakers as much as you can. This is our episode with the fantastic Aneil Karia. Enjoy, everyone. How are we doing, Aneil? Are you all right?
Yeah, doing good, thank you. Not too bad. How about you?
Yeah, I am all right. I had my COVID jab yesterday, and everyone said you feel really bad. I'm like, I'm all right. I'm all right. Surviving.
Famous last words.
Yeah, exactly. I see if I start shuddering and shaking during this, just start going off, and yeah, Dom, you'll be fine to take over.
Yeah,
good. Are you press junket all day today? Is that what you've been?
It's just beginning.
Oh, we're the first. Brilliant. You haven't got bored of saying the same shit yet?
Not yet. No.
Oh, that's good. Have you been watching anything recently that's sort of inspired you?
I watched 000.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was great.
I don't know how much these are all inspiring me, but I've watched that. I've watched been watching Gomorrah because I sort of never did that, so I went backwards and started watching that. And I've been watching a bit of that Mayor of Easttown as well.
Mayor of Easttown.
Is that good with Kate Winslet?
Yeah. I really like it.
Yeah. Great performance from her.
I mean, great performance.
Yeah. I think a lot of stuff on HBO is really good. I've always rated it as a channel, like the kind of style they have.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've started, right?
Yeah.
This is it.
This
is
as good as you get, mate.
This is totally fine. I just didn't know if
we're not going to talk about your work. We're going to talk about the Mayor of Easttown.
I don't know if you're going to prep me and then be like, Okay, and then do your welcome thing. So I just thought I'd double check, but obviously that's not very good material. You can just cut that.
I think this is great, actually.
It's great. I think it's absolutely great. It's all fun. It's just it's always nice to ease in.
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say that HBO. I remember, I was of that generation where, like, the box set thing, like, was kind of blowing up when I was about 18 or whatever. Because it's not like we had Sky or I don't know if many people got HBO in the UK back then. So, but you'd have to get like, I'd get Series 1 box set for my birthday, and then I'd ask for Series 2 box set for Christmas or something like that. But and gradually I kind of you piece them. But you really had to kind of learn to wait and be patient back then.
But I think it was easier with spoilers as well, though, wasn't it? I mean, like now you couldn't get away with it.
No, right. You'd have to actively avoid the entire World Wide Web or something.
Which is actually one of the really disappointing things when people recommend stuff to you and then you see it all over Twitter. And then you feel like, I have to watch this now. Like Game of Thrones, I've not really watched it because I missed the boat. And now I'm like, there's no way I've got my life to go through that. And I won't be able to share it with anyone because they'll go, no, I'm not interested. And no one talks about it anymore anyway. It's like it died. It's like Game of Thrones, what was that?
I mean, I actually missed that moment. And yeah, I don't know, it'd be a weird one to stop. Maybe I'll watch it in a decade from now. But
exactly, yeah.
It'd be a strange one right now to start watching it. And also all that like parlance of that series about like winter is coming and the red wedding or whatever it is, or the white wedding, none of which means anything to me. Kind of like, it's weird. You're so saturated in its kind of aura, but you know almost nothing about it.
Yeah. Is that how you sort of got into films in the first place? Was there something that inspired you as a kid? Was it kind of that saturation of movies, TV that made you want to be a filmmaker?
Looking back, I mean, to be honest, I didn't really realize I wanted to be a filmmaker till quite late on. But I think in that kind of subconscious osmosis, like way, it was happening when I was a teenager, but it was happening through TV, I think, because I grew up in I wasn't from like a artistic background or family or particularly, my parents were like in a doctor and a nurse, but so and I grew up in a town which had a sort of multiplex cinema. So I think the first film I went to see was like Hook.
Oh, I loved Hook. It got some shit, but I got hooked, Dom, on Hook, and I loved it. And people still give it shit, but I think it's great. It's a great, fun movie.
I mean, yeah, when I was 8, it was great. Anyway, I've not revisited it.
No, you don't need to watch it now. Not necessarily.
And yeah, Robin Hood, Prince Thieves. But it was these kind of blockbuster films, And to be honest, going to the cinema was like a rare treat, It wasn't like part of my life or anything, and nor was film, but TV was, and I remember my dad would always watch the Brookside Omnibus, and that
was a soap, by the way, for anyone not in England in the 90s.
And I got kind of quite hooked on that, aged like 10 or whatever, and then I remember being quite like really intrigued and kind of wowed by drama series when I was a bit older, like 13, 14, like Jimmy McGovern stuff and Paul Abbott ones like Clocking Off and stuff like that. I think it was that kind of stuff that was like actually, like I say, unbeknownst to me, giving me this kind of bug, and like I was totally transported when I was watching anything like that. But actually, having said that, I was kind of becoming quite obsessed with music videos as well. When I'd go around mates' houses, they'd have MTV or MTV2 and stuff, and these videos would blow my mind.
They were amazing.
The older I started getting those directors, what were they called? The director's work DVDs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they'd have a load of their music videos and ads and stuff on it. Yeah,
Michel Gondry, etc.
Yes.
I think it was a weird
Spike Jones
fusion of British TV drama and kind of music video auteurs that was subconsciously inspiring me. But it took a long time from then for me to be like, oh, maybe I could do that. Yeah,
because you acted a little bit in a mate's film or whatever, but that was way before you'd done any kind of producing or directing. Was that just something you stumbled across? How did that even happen? How did you get into the orbit of filmmaking?
I mean, I never really pursued acting per se, but actually as a kid, I was in this theatre club group thing.
Yeah, cool.
And that was actually really inspiring. Me and a friend who now is an actor, and another friend who's now an animator, and another friend who's now works in theatre and
Sweet.
kind of mad kind of multimedia theatre and projection and stuff like this. We were all in that group, and even though acting wasn't for all of us, it was actually inspiring us in one way or another. You know, it was just a local drama thing that like put on, well, increasingly big actually, kind of like Christmas productions and things like that, and it was just really fun. But at the weekends, me and those friends I mentioned would borrow one of their dad's like JVC like camcorders, and started making films. And I remember one of my friends, Jack, he had this like ancient piece of editing software which you plugged into the TV.
Yes,
could cut things together, and you could put really kind of like 8-bit titles on and stuff. And I mean, these films we were making were absolutely like bonkers, and you know, some of them horrifically poor, and some of them quite, you know, probably quite amazing for what they were, and some of them just really surreal and a bit disturbing. And yeah, we'd do this like as many whatever chances we got basically at the weekend. And yeah, that was how we spent a lot of our weekends, and it was so enjoyable. But weirdly, even then, you know, I wasn't thinking, oh, I want to do this on a bigger scale, or I want to grow up and do this for you know, for a career or anything like that. It was just too abstract a kind of connection. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But I in the end decided to study journalism, because it felt like this kind of I was quite interested in like the news and the idea of journalism, and I thought, oh well, that's a bit like filmmaking in a weird way.
It's a way in. I get that it's a way in. People think, how do I get in? I don't want to act necessarily, but how do I get in? And that's the way in. Journalism, you think, well, okay, well, it's behind a camera or it's in front of a camera. It's something.
Exactly. It involves pictures and it involves storytelling. So yeah, I did do lots of kind of like, you know, putting pictures together, filming things in its kind of loosest definition. And actually, I remember one exercise one day where we were allowed to kind of like unshackle ourselves from the kind of, you know, parameters of any kind of journalism thing, and we could tell them, or we were asked to make a 5-minute film that was the day in the life of something, and you could put music to it and everything, so it didn't need to be like hemmed in by the usual kind of journalistic standards, and you could be emotive with it and whatnot. And I don't know why, but I did the day in the life of my friend's hand. But yeah, I just remember kind of cutting that together and putting music to it and stuff was so much. I kind of loved that, whereas the rest of the course was just passing me by a little bit. And I thought, oh, like, you know, this. I guess it felt more like a music video or something, you know, and that gave me some kind of itch. And then I left university and got a job at Sky News doing night shifts.
You got in Sky News? Congratulations!
Wow. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I was very lucky to get a job there, and it was like real life money. I was getting paid. I think by this point I'd moved to London as well, and I was beginning to understand cinema and things like that. And I that itch was kind of growing a bit more, a bit larger and a bit more defined. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I really do want to do something like this. Around that time, someone showed me a newspaper with an advert for the NFTS in it, and I knew a little bit about the NFTS. And this was advertising this kind of slightly mad new course with a very long title called Producing and Directing for Television Studio Entertainment or something like this.
Nice.
So I knew, catchy. I knew enough about the NFTS to know that they weren't having to advertise their directing fiction and cinematography courses and things like this, because they advertise themselves, and they obviously got insane numbers of applicants every year and stuff. So I thought, oh, well, maybe if they're advertising in a national paper there, you know, they need applicants. Long story short, that hand film I'd made and a bit of kind of winging it managed to get me a place there, and I managed to get a scholarship through the Lou Grade Foundation to kind of cover the fees and stuff, and I went there.
Amazing. National Film and Television
awesome,
School.
yeah.
Here we go.
So I found myself in the NFTS, not having this kind of film-centric experience on a totally different kind of course, but just by being in that environment, I started to understand filmmaking and in a totally different way. And even though I was studying this quite specific studio-based kind of gallery directing route, there was just so much going on at that school, you know, master classes in the evenings that you can go to with directors and watch their films, Q&As. I also met all the fiction direction students and the cinematography students and started to kind of, so normally I guess people figure out film, then go to film school, but I kind of
went to film school and
my way in there.
Figured it out there, yeah.
And of course they have an amazing like VHS or DVD library or whatever, and I started kind of hoovering up all that. And to be fair to the course's credit, we both began to understand that maybe I had a more kind of interest in this more scripted world of things, and they let me slightly cater my experience of that studio directing course in a more scripted direction. So I ended up doing a single camera kind of graduation piece rather than a studio based one, which was scripted. And I worked with a DOP from the cinematography department who I still work with today, and worked with the editing department and production design and everything. So I was able to sort of take it into a more, you know, traditional filmmaking direction, even though I wasn't on that course. And by the time I left NFTS, I was like, okay, well, I understand what I want to do now. And it's basically what they're doing on the directing, on the film directing course. And that was the next chapter, kind of trying to figure all that out.
But it's kind of fascinating that you've kind of gone in, I guess, in a sort of a sideways way. You sort of started off with experimental stuff, and that's definitely had an influence on you, and that's kind of where the magic seemed to have started. And then this, you know, the journalism, all of these tools are kind of ways to learn about filmmaking, and the TV course as well. So, you know, I think it's interesting sometimes that you go in from a different route because you learn maybe what you don't want to do. And you also know, you know, a bit more about the outside world of film and television, not necessarily what you're going to specialize in. Yeah,
I think that's exactly it. It's like you said, it's as much about learning what you don't want to do and figuring out, you know, going in slightly wrong directions. And then, you know, like I was saying, the job I had where I was just coasting around for a while in these kind of waitering type jobs, but it was actually more. It was a happier time when I look back than when I was going down those really wrong paths, because that was those kind of like, you know, just money earning jobs were just times where I was kind of just being able to kind of live and breathe and like, you know, be young and be in the city and kind of watch stuff and kind of, you know what I mean? Just soak everything up. And that's as much a part of the journey as, you know, the doing, I suppose, as well.
No, absolutely. And that must have been so influential for Purge then, in terms of, you know, you're talking there roaming the streets of London and having fun and going out and obviously spending a lot of time there. That brings, you know, we'll come back to Surge, but my God, it's fantastically intense state of London life, you know, and it's just brilliantly well done, by the way. We haven't mentioned that yet. But we'll come back to Surge because I think it's really important to find out how you got there, you know, and your journey to get to this film.
Yeah.
Did you start making shorts sort of kind of soon after that? Were you kind of like, look, I need to make stuff. I need to get going on this journey?
Yeah, it was it was still a bit long-winded after that, to be honest. I didn't make a short yet. What happened was I was presented quite like jammily with an opportunity to make a music video. And like I said, that was always a sort of like world I'd loved, and I kind of like really relished the idea of making one, and kind of had a chance presented to me on a plate by the manager of this band, called Wave Machines, who were Liverpool-based like indie band, and yeah, I made this choreographed music video, and had a whale of a time making it. It was probably the first kind of really filmic thing I'd made.
Had you planned it? Did you storyboard stuff? Or was it kind of, you know, shooting from the hip? What's your process?
It was definitely more planned than some stuff I've done recently. It was choreographed. So I had this kind of vision in my head. It was basically for forensic. I mean, it sounds weird when I just sum it up so crudely, but it was basically for forensic scientists doing a contemporary choreographed routine around a murder scene. And I worked with a choreographer who I grew up with, and yeah, so we did plan it quite meticulously, actually. And anyway, it was, you know, not bad. It was not a disaster, and it was entered into the UK MVAs, and it won the best choreography in a music video award. So more the choreographer's prize, to be honest, than the director's. But
still.
But yeah,
you can claim that.
It was a technically successful music video, and I got signed by, you know, a really nice couple of guys who ran a production company who did music videos and ads and stuff like that. Signed me and did some more music videos, and then I got the chance to do some TV commercials, which were not, to be honest, and I think anyone involved would agree, they weren't exactly like, groundbreaking, creatively like transcendent Glazer-esque kind of commercials. They were quite bog standard.
Yeah, you learn your trade.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to put them on your showreel necessarily, but you spend more time with camera, more time with actors, more time with crew.
Yeah, exactly. That's the funny thing about directing, like when you're trying to figure it out and kind of forge your path, you're not spending all day, every day on set, like a camera trainee might be or something like that.
So true.
You're kind of winging it like for a long time, and potentially ever to an extent, but there's so much winging it. So that kind of set time, like you say, is important, because you kind of start thinking, I'm trying to be a director and that's what I do, but it's not. You get on set each time and you're like, Jesus, this, like, do I know what I'm doing? And just that kind of having that consistency of time is really good, no matter what you're making, like you say, Giles. And so being a director, having a crew with you, figuring it out, even if it's not your dream project, it's really valuable. And of course, you get paid on commercials. So for the first time in my kind of journey of trying to make it, I was getting paid to direct.
It's kind of interesting in a way. I mean, what you're sort of saying about directing, because it's very true. I mean, I started in camera. I'm not sure. Giles kind of started in acting, wasn't it? I think.
Right. Okay.
But you kind of learn something that, that there's maybe a bit more information in terms of like, this is how you hold a camera. This is the f-stop. I mean, obviously you've got to learn about framing and composition, and there's a huge amount of creativity there. But directing is a very kind of vague thing, and a lot of it's life experience, and it's stuff you've learned along the way. And, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about all these different routes that you took, like journalism and, your actual life experiences, I think all those things kind of feed in, but it's not something you necessarily have a rule book that you sort of turn up with.
Totally, yeah. I completely agree, yeah. Like when I look back and start telling this kind of rambling tale of how I came to now, it is rambling and it is quite long-winded, but I think you're bang on, because all that is kind of, even though it sounds a bit naff, it's all kind of forming who you are, and like, it's not even worth dissecting it too much. Every project I'm making now is a product of all that kind of that journey. So even though it was a bit of a messy journey, and it wasn't like, I made my first short age 21 and then my next short and then my next short, it kind of happened the way it happened because it had to happen like that.
And then so you made music videos and commercials for a while, which is great because it pays the bills and you're practicing. But during that time, are you going, I should really be making a short? But obviously shorts are unpaid. There's no money in it. You've got to ask people for favours. But was it something that you were like, look, I need to do this now. I want to make features.
I think, that's really spot on, actually. What was happening was, I mean, to be totally honest, I wasn't getting to direct as many music videos as I wanted to be. I was pitching on things and not getting them, and that's kind of, particularly when you haven't got the kind of emotional apparatus, maybe, I was quite a bit younger to kind of like be particularly great at kind of constant rejection and stuff like that.
Well, it's tough dealing with rejection generally.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a good crash course in like being fine with it in the end. But it's kind of exhausting when you're young and kind of don't understand. And you sort of, when you're young, you sort of put it all on yourself, rather than thinking, oh, well, there's a great big machine at work here that has its reasons for kind of going with this wildly experienced person over me, or other reasons even that, not worth getting to. But what I was mainly doing were these fairly pedestrian kind of commercials, and I was really grateful to be doing them, and they were great. They were what they were selling something. But that sort of creative nourishment that you were talking about, Giles, just wasn't being fulfilled. And that whole sort of those series of mini epiphanies I'd had over the years, like I was saying, one at film school where I'm like, oh, this is what you can do, and I suddenly get it now, and this is what cinema is, and people can make that, and oh, how about that? I was kind of straying a bit further from that kind of thrill that I wanted to kind of harness. And so in the end, you're exactly right. I was thinking, okay, well, this wasn't really the point, and I had this kind of idea in my head that kept knocking around, which was Beat, essentially the first short I made. And what happened was I made a Christmas advert campaign. I did that. It earned me a bit more money than I'd had before, and I thought, I'm going to take not wild amounts of money, but I'm gonna put some of this aside because I think I was slightly in that catch-22 problem of not being able to get shorts made, because I think I was applying to shorts things, but it's like, send us your previous shorts to get them to the shorts scheme or whatever. Yeah. So I was slightly stuck in that thing. I mean, it's easy to reinvent history. Maybe I just wasn't trying hard enough, but I was definitely getting a bit of that kind of like, oh, well, you need to have made a short to apply for this thing. And it's like, okay. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to take this. It was like 4 or 5 grand, and I put it aside, and cool. I said to him, and I'd met my friend Scott
O'Donnell, producer, and
he was working in ads as well. More in a more successful and interesting way than I was, but he was also had this itch of like the cinema and film is what I ultimately want to make. So, and I talked to him about this film, and we used to go out together and go, let's make it happen, man. And and then we made it.
You just made it, yeah.
It was as simple as that. Yeah, we made it. I kind of it wasn't a traditional script because I guess it's not a super traditional film. It was more of a treatment kind of thing. We had a kind of like tenuous in with Ben Whishaw, so we kind of managed to kind of get an email address to send him it, and we said, listen, we'd absolutely love you to do this. If you find it interesting, we can make the schedule work around you, because he was becoming very, very successful.
Very successful. He's doing James Bond by that point already, wasn't he?
He'd done the first one of them. Yeah,
he was big time. The fact that you even just emailed him, found an email and just went, hey, is kind of brave, because you can totally get ignored by that.
Yeah, well, it was thanks to my friend who knew him, who was willing to ask him on our behalf, and that was Jack, who I used to make films with when we were kids. So anyway, he, to our surprise, said, you know what, I love this, I'm up for it. 2 things, I can't dance. And I said, turns out he can. But
he is one of those, isn't it? Yeah.
I said, don't worry, it's definitely not that kind of movement. And he said, I haven't got much time, but I've got 2 days in 2 weeks from now. So we weren't really expecting that. We were expecting, spring next year or something. But he said, I'm going to disappear in a while, so maybe we should do it then. And Scott and I thought, well, I think Scott said to me, we just got to make it happen. And looking back, something about that kind of mad momentum kind of was just all fueled into what it became, I think, and it was a good thing in the end. And we made it. We did it. We made it happen. And
you did.
That was probably a big kind of moment in my career. Just, I don't mean in terms of success or anything. I just mean in terms of realizing, oh, this feels good because I'm doing what I dreamt of doing, and I'm doing what I'm kind of making without being too wanky about it. Like I'm making the film that was kind of in me and I wanted to make, and now I'm making it and it feels good, rather than directing becoming a kind of academic exercise or something like that.
And you're making kind of bold moves that, they have a risk element attached, but you're kind of fueling it with passion, really. And when those kind of things pay off, that kind of is, how you get films made. It's like a serious determination and some kind of authenticity behind it, and a bit of luck from someone else recognizing that from the other side.
Yeah, completely. And it's one of those things, isn't it? Like, as a filmmaker, you're kind of asked about your kind of voice as a filmmaker, and that's a really weird abstract concept to kind of get your head around. And I think it's only, maybe some people understand it from the get-go, but speaking personally, it's only when you look back, you think, oh, okay, I guess this was these things I did was me developing my voice, and I guess I understand what that is now. But at the time, it's a bit more chaotic than that, and you're just kind of splurging stuff from your kind of soul or whatever, and that's only when you're watching it back you're thinking, oh, okay, this is what it was that feeling, like you said, Dom, of kind of, oh, finally I'm making something that feels true to myself, and it feels good, even though I'm certainly not getting paid for this. I'm actively losing money.
Absolutely, but hoping to gain in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels really nourishing creatively, and that's what you're kind of searching for, isn't it? And I think that's why, and I'm going to talk about this more, but like, it's good as a short filmmaker to kind of throw the shackles off of being too intellectual about it and thinking, oh, what kind of films do people want me to make, and what themes are kind of like current and popular. And what kind of devices do people use in short films that seem popular? Should I put a twist in? Should I put this in that? And it's always going to feel better, even if it kind of like crashes and burns, if you're just kind of, tapping into like right there. I'm tapping my chest, by the way.
for those who can't see.
Just like Matthew McConaughey.
Hopefully not just like him. But.
It's true. I think there are institutions where they've got very talented people who sort of come together in these kind of group think tanks, and they say, okay, well, here's a genre. Companies like Pixar that can do it exceptionally well. But I think for a lot of sort of individuals, it has to sort of come from a very unique seed of something that you're, desperate to make, or finding that seed or some kind of a bit you can implant into someone else's work so that you can really latch on and it feels kind of real rather than sort of making something that feels like hollow, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's easy. I sometimes sort of rue the fact I'm not one of those like little black book guys, with like 50 killer films in my back pocket to just like fire at you. But like, you have to kind of make peace with the fact you're maybe not that kind of person. But there's, there are benefits to not being that as well. And even though it might take longer and be more sort of hard work, kind of figuring out, what you truly want to make, then hopefully when you do, it's going to kind of at least be true to yourself.
Yeah. I have a load of ideas. I stuck them in a notebook. That's how the Dare came about. I feel you can find ideas anyway, find inspiration anywhere, right, Dom?
Yeah, I mean, just from watching films, from reading books, just people you overhear in cafes and everyday life, you often hear the most interesting, like, segues of dialogue that you'd never normally hear in your friend circles.
Totally, and that becomes an idea. Talking of reading books as well, I went to the library, and I think sometimes that's a really good source of inspiration, just flicking through stuff. And plus, my library's gorgeous. It's really nice. It's got 2 stories.
Well, you can hardly call it a library if it's only got 2 stories.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Dom. Talking of reading up, I've been reading up quite a lot about Bitcoin in films and how I believe it's going to move forward, certainly move the needle within filmmaking.
Yeah, so the financial landscape is definitely changing, and I think cryptocurrencies especially are going to be used for a lot more day-to-day things in all aspects of the economies and the world trades. And film is just one of those things where investment and film transactions, buying VODs, those kind of things are going to be increasing, I think, as the years go on. So it's a good time to get into the knowledge and Bitcoin.
I totally get that, and actually it's a perfect segue into our sponsor, which is the fantastic Coin Corner.
To coin a phrase.
It's a quick and easy way to buy Bitcoin in the UK. So sign up now and you can get some free sats, which is basically small bits of Bitcoin for free. You can use the voucher code FILMBTC. Link to that is in the show notes. Dom, you might like this actually. I was coming up with a thriller idea for my film, and I said to the librarian, "Do you sell any books on paranoia?" And she said, "They're right behind you."
Straight out of Uncle Herbert's joke book from 1950.
Yeah, that was a joke segue. Thank you very much. Coincorner.com. But we're talking about being true to yourself and how important that is, and finding ideas and notes and stories and where they come from, where your inspiration comes from, and playing the long game.
Always play the long game.
Beat was made sort of 2012, 2013, and it didn't turn into a feature, and obviously it's coming out now in 21, but I imagine you shot this in 2020, so therefore that's sort of 7-8 years of this short, and then going, right, maybe one day I'll turn this into a feature. Obviously between that time you made many other shorts, award-winning shorts as well, but talk about that process. When did you think this could be a feature, and what is the process of turning that short into Serge?
It happened quite soon after, actually. It wasn't really a case of making the short with a feature in mind. That certainly wasn't happening, and it wasn't. Okay. It definitely wasn't a kind of proof of concept short. There was no kind of systematic kind of approach like that. In fact, it really was just this short. And then I think what happened was I found those themes really interesting. I found the experience of making it really kind of invigorating, and so did Ben. And we sort of slowly became friends kind of from making it onwards. Mm-hmm. And both felt really intrigued by the themes we were trying to explore. It also had, not in a cynical sense, but it also had a really strong reaction, that short. And it seemed to be kind of tapping into something, even though it's an unusual film, and this was what I hoped would happen with Serge, even though it's an unusual film, it seemed to be tapping into something quite universal and that people kind of like fascinating in some way. And yeah, I thought I'd really like to do that. I was aware that to make that into a feature, with Beat, it's a short and it's somewhat observational. So you're kind of observing, and a lot of it's long lens, for instance, you're kind of observing this man living on the peripheries, kind of operating outside the normal parameters of behavior and stuff. It's kind of a little snapshot of this character who you kind of see from afar, and there's not too much explained. Whereas if you're going to do a feature, I kind of thought, okay, well, you have to be kind of with him and kind of breathing the moment. And I mean, as you can see from the film, I didn't want to go to the other extreme and start kind of motivating and explaining everything to death. But you had to. I wanted there to be some kind of context. I also wanted it to be this guy because in Beat, you see so little of this guy's life that he seems like another creature or something. But in Surge, you realize that, this could be any kind of invisible background stranger on the streets kind of thing. And, they work like we work, they take the tube, they live, they have a family, they have a flat, etc.
Did you kind of get to the same similar kind of territory at the end of Beat, in terms of where the character goes, or was that sort of developed for the feature?
Both films, even though they're on different scales, obviously, are about somebody going on this journey, and in one sense, in a physical sense, they're kind of
spiraling
into kind of self-destruction. In the physical sense, they are quite literally being damaged, but in a kind of spiritual or emotional sense, they kind of, it's this kind of transcendent, kind of somewhat liberating journey. So there is this kind of like duality, and I'm saying all this stuff as if it's kind of perfectly done, but I'm just talking about what the aims were.
To be honest, I think you massively achieved. Massively. Surge is amazing.
But yeah, so there is this sort of dual like journey going on, where in one sense that you're heading into kind of oblivion, and in another sense you're transcending kind of this world into a kind of higher state or something. And I think that's what we were aiming for at the end of Beat to some extent, and also in Surge. There are definite parallels there, yeah. But yeah, in developing that film was not massively straightforward. I mean, it's an unusual film. It's not got the sort of
almost beginning, middle and end type thing. It's hard to pitch it, I imagine, in the rooms.
Kind of narrative arc. It doesn't explain stuff that's going to frustrate some people and not be for others, etc. And also it's dealing with these really kind of like abstract and esoteric kind of themes, about kind of existence and our kind of primal instincts versus our kind of, what humankind looks like in a very, very modern kind of automated kind of world. And they're easy things they're not easy, but it's one thing to sit around a kind of table in an office kind of drinking oat lattes and musing on these kind of like esoteric themes, but it's another one kind of harnessing them into a story, and into a film. And it wasn't a swift process. And also it becomes even harder when the director, aka me, is kind of reluctant to make everything too neat and kind of explain things too much. So that adds another kind of difficult angle into the kind of development process. So I guess it was looking to do something fairly, a little bit unconventional. So trying to harness that into a script that kind of everyone can get behind.
And did you kind of work with Ben in terms of like how the script developed? I've seen a lot of his stuff and he's an amazing actor, but I've never seen him do anything like that. Like at all. It's like a complete revelation of like character acting and it's really impressive. Like is that kind of a lot of the discussions that you had sort of going into the script process, or did you kind of come up with the idea and the chats that you had on the short and then kind of go away and develop it a bit more?
Yeah, it was. Ben was definitely involved, but it was it was kind of frequent conversations about, the themes, where the script was heading, looking at drafts, talking about them. He wasn't coming at it from this kind of development headed approach. It was more just in a thematic. It was just more just having really kind of deep as possible conversations about the themes and about the character. And I think we share, him and I, and this is why kind of we wanted to go on that journey of making it, shared a fascination with the themes of how far kind of we as a species have strayed from our kind of like, tactile kind of instincts, or however you want to phrase it. We kind of shared that kind of fascination with what the modern world has become. And so we found it really interesting. And not and effortless in a sense to talk about these things and probe them. And so when it came to each draft, we'd knock it around, and Ben would be really helpful and really candid. And he'd, sometimes he'd be like, okay, well, I think we're kind of straying from our, like original, the drive of why we wanted to make this and what's happening here. And it was all, he was a brilliant part of that process. And I think, I'm really glad you think you're seeing him in a different light, because I think he found the way we approached the filmmaking and the performance and things, I think he found it kind of really, like, truly kind of exhilarating. And
well, I bet, because you are, again, even though you get inside his mind and you follow him down the street and you're really there, he's seeing what he sees, but a lot of the time you're also on long lenses, where he was walking down real streets with real people, no one knew he was being filmed, and he is in that character, and he's doing his shaking and his moments and his jumping and you go, that guy's absolutely crazy. If you saw him on the street, you go, fucking, I'll stay away from that one. So Ben must have just immersed himself into that world, which must have been fantastic for you as a director to see.
Yeah, I loved it, and I loved that way of working, and that's how we tried to approach every angle of the filmmaking, really. We like I say, there were lots of conversation and discussion about the character and where he was at in each moment, and the sort of nuances of his journey emotionally and things like that. But we didn't want to. What I didn't want to do was rehearse it, right, to death. So what I wanted to do is create this kind of like as whole and kind of real a kind of environment for him to act in as possible. And that meant, in a practical sense, that meant kind of lighting 360 where possible. Not confining people to kind of one part of the set where we'd perfectly lit it. Not letting the camera be instinctive to the performance rather than the other way around. But Ben and I did something where, if the character Joseph hadn't been into a location before, so this wouldn't apply to his flat or his parental home or things like this. But if the character was going into a new location, then we'd make sure Ben didn't see that location or go into it until we were rolling on the first take. So of course you're not going to nail everything on the first take, but it brought this kind of liveness to everything. And so when Ben goes into a bank or whatever it is, he is genuinely having to get his bearings and figure the space out.
You really felt that, yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Love
and then
that.
Likewise with characters who he wouldn't have met before, then we made sure they didn't meet until we were actually rolling. And it just brought this kind of like, considering it's kind of in some ways about a character rediscovering, the world and a sort of rebirth of sense and experiencing everything kind of anew again. It felt like if we could lean into that and create an environment for Ben where he could kind of do that, then we would get that kind of, live energy that we wanted. Even with the routes he took on certain streets, just not pinning it down and being like, okay, well, we're not quite sure whether he's going to go there or there, but we'll go with it. And the end result is something a little bit chaotic. And, I think camera wise, it can be a lot for some people and too much for others and stuff. But I kind of wanted it to be this kind of experiential journey. And for better or worse, I think that's what we went for.
You definitely have. Before we go more into search, just talk us through how you actually managed to raise the money for this then. How did it happen? Because it's what people want to know all the time. Short to feature. How do we do it? We make shorts. How do I turn it into a feature? Or how do I make a feature? How did it happen for you? What was the moment when you went, I think I'm making this?
I had this treatment for Serge. I had an agent by this point, and she said, okay, let's think of a few places to take this to and find a kind of home for it. And obviously it was a first feature, so they were a certain kind of production company, or some of them are individual producers. And I had some really good meetings, and I really loved how Rook's Nest, who we made it with, talked about it. In fact, I remember that was the one meeting I had out of all of them where they kind of grilled me on it and kind of highlighted all the problems with it and gave me quite a hard time.
Yeah, but it means they care. It means they've actually read it.
Yeah. I came out thinking, oh, well, I guess they don't want to do it, but it turns out they did. And I kind of liked that they were thinking in that way. And then, we got into development. Then it was about finding the writers, actually, because, I knew I didn't want to write it. I wanted to collaborate with a writer. And so reading a lot of script samples and things, having meetings with writers. And once we'd found the writer, we got development money from BBC Films. And then this was a long journey, to be honest. So
yeah.
Luckily, BBC were kind of generous enough and kind of into it enough to keep developing the script over quite a while.
Well, yeah, we're talking 7 years in total, but Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Well, I mean, we actually shot it in like 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, a long time. And at a certain point, BFI came on board. I think we were able to get a little bit more than perhaps we would have on another first feature because of Ben Wishaw's kind of stature as an actor. I think it probably also helped that from beginning of development to when we actually made it, I'd also then done quite a bit of TV as well. So
you had.
I'd kind of I don't know, whatever you want to call it, kind of
established yourself
that way or whatever.
Well, you definitely had. You'd made Love Sick, which I loved, Pure, and then Top Boy as well. You know, that's an incredible CV already. So therefore, people are now taking you seriously. You're not just a shorts person, if you like. You've now gone, well, actually, I've definitely cut my stripes on some brilliant telly. So therefore, maybe the journey was slightly easier for people to push the button and go, actually,
I don't know. Truth is, I don't know how much that played a part in things and how much it was, you know, having someone like Ben attached to it and things, or the film just needing that to an extent. Going back to the TV thing, I was personally glad I'd taken that route. I think directors really vary in their attitude towards, you know, I know directors who I really love and really rate their work, and they just didn't want to have that distraction. They just wanted to have a kind of purity of vision about concentrating on the feature and making that their one only priority. And I kind of rate that. But, you know, everyone's different. And for me, I kind of exercise those shooting muscles so much, you know, and every time you go back to it, it feels a little new again and a little strange. And, you know, I didn't have that with Serge. I just had this kind of innate kind of like, I understand what I need to do here.
That's, And that's, do you know what, as the director, you know, writer of it, as well as Rupert and Rita, you were kind of a bit like, well, fine. You know, you've got your brilliant producers, Julie and Sophie, going, okay, well, we'll work this out for you. And that's great. It's a good place to be. And the fact I think what worked for me, for you going from shorts to features, is you kept working. You weren't stopping. You were like, well, I'm going to go make telly. I'm going to do this. So then when it came up, you were like, great, I'm ready. And I think that's fascinating. I think that is, you know, really cool. And Rook's Nest are brilliant. And, you know, obviously having BFI and BBC Films behind you suddenly makes things very cool.
I think overall, like Surge, you know, as a film, I think something that really intrigued me was you managed to kind of follow this guy's life, and even though he's kind of going on this liberating journey, at the same time, some of the things he's doing are crazy. But I think what was really impressive, what you managed to achieve, was kind of almost drawing attention to how manufactured like society is, you know, in terms of these kind of social conventions, you know, sort of seeing him going around the high street and all these interactions and, you know, the ways these institutions work. It was really quite fascinating, I think, in kind of looking at, you know, is he actually the crazy one, or, you know, is he the one that's breaking out of it all? And I think that was a remarkable achievement.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, Tom. Yeah. No, I think that's a really, really nice way of articulating it, better than I do, to be honest. But yeah, it is trying to probe at that. It's like, okay, well, we exist in this world. It's the only world we know and we take it for granted. But there are some moments where you just kind of look at it through a certain lens and you think, this is really strange kind of system that we've created for ourselves here. And it's not particularly straightforward or pleasant.
No.
And why have we done that? You know, like, and yeah, you know, I think I always loved cinema experiences or any kind of film experience where I come out of the film and I'm just a little bit unnerved, and my mood's just been shifted in the way I see the world. You know, literally when you walk out of screen, whatever, onto the street, everything feels a little bit different. And even if that's not in a very nice way, I've always been quite impressed how a film can kind of like shift your mood for a few hours or something.
Totally agree.
But I think you balanced it really nicely with kind of the moments with the parents, especially the mum. That was kind of, I think everyone's sort of been there a little bit with their sort of parents' expectations and that sort of heartbreak. And I think that and the sort of the peace that he finds at the end, it found a nice counter. And I think those moments were really important in sort of balancing away that alienation and sadness that kind of, you know, rides through a lot of the film.
Well, that's really kind, yeah, and I think that's credit to Rita and Rupert and you know, the development team, who always understood that it had to have heart and humanity to temper the chaos. Yeah, and I'm really glad it worked. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you be able to give some advice for filmmakers coming up now who've trying to go from short to features, and what would you suggest to them now, looking back?
I can't pretend I'm some great oracle on anything particularly, but I think like we were saying earlier, it's really easy to get wrapped up in thinking too intellectually or kind of scientifically about kind of film and what film you should be making, thinking, oh, what are the kind of hot right now themes, or what stories are kind of successful and not successful. I just don't think it works like that. I think if you can really tap into what, and it's not easy, I don't find it easy, but stories you want to tell, or what kind of what intrigues you about the world, and kind of go with that, then I think, like I said, it's easy for me to say now, but even if it goes tits up, then it's gonna be true to yourself, and it's gonna be interesting for that, and I think people will respect that. Even if it doesn't succeed in literally every way, I think people will really respect that, and they'll see you as a filmmaker, and they'll understand your voice. And I think you'll feel better for it ultimately as well. It will be, filmmaking is kind of, and should be, personal, I think. And just go with that.
Shoot from the heart and don't give up.
Yeah, exactly. And don't expect, to sit down and come up with a killer idea that afternoon. I mean, it's never, ever, ever happened to me. I don't think it's that normal. So it can be a slog, I think. But yeah, just trust yourself.
Love it. Surge is out May the 28th. Do go watch this brilliant, intense, slow burn thriller with an absolutely scintillating performance from Ben Whishaw and brilliantly directed by Aneil. Honestly, it's great. It's a superb calling card for you, and I can't wait to see what you do next. I imagine there's people knocking, so I hope you've got a great script ready. Or you've got people to write you a great script.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that instead. But thanks so much. I really appreciate the
pleasure
words, and it's been really enjoyable chatting with you both, and look forward to chatting some other time.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got social media? Can people find you on there?
Yeah, I'm not the best. I'm increasingly crap.
Increasingly crap. Good.
I'm on Instagram, and it's @_Aneil_.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you. You can follow me at Giles Alderson, Dom.
Director Dom Lenoir, or Dom Lenoir, depending on which platform you're on.
You can follow the podcast at Filmmakers Pod. If you've liked this, tell your pals, and remember, if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, or go out there and make your indie film, then remember, you can and you have to send the elevator back down. Aneil Karia, thank you so much for your time. You've been an inspiration and an absolute delight of a guest. Thank you.
Nice one. Thanks a lot, guys.